Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico of hoopswire.com with another Cavaliers NBA Hoopswire show. I've got another envelope this week. The last one I tried to auction off on eBay at the suggestion of Steve, the producer, and we're still taking bids on that one, starting at 1 cent. 1 cent for last week's envelope. This week, the handwriting's actually a little more legible. So perhaps we'll try and get, $1 or something. Anyway, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here. It's Thursday night. If you're watching this live, Thursday evening, hopefully you're probably sitting down eating dinner or something. I never really eat dinner until after the show. So as of right now, I'm like starving. So I'll be starving for the whole show in case you were wondering. There's a lot to talk about, believe it or not. Here we are, June. Obviously, again, this is live, so the NBA Finals start tonight. I'll address that in a minute. Boston Celtics and Dallas Mavericks. I don't know that anybody would have picked the Mavericks even 3 weeks ago. I don't think too many people were thinking that Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic would be in the NBA Finals, but here they are. And Dallas Mavericks didn't even make the playoffs last year. So I remember I know I was kind of wondering, is this Kyrie Luka thing going to work? I think it's cool. If Kyrie's not going to play for the Cavs, I think it's kind of cool that he's playing for, playing next to Luka Doncic, which was exciting. And then they didn't make the playoffs last year. And now here they are in the NBA Finals, which just goes to show you that the Cleveland Cavaliers, you never know. This era of the NBA reminds me very much of the 70s, where teams were, you never knew who was going to the finals. It wasn't always the big market teams. Obviously, Boston's a bigger market team, but, we've had Milwaukee and Phoenix, and who else am I missing? Who was in there? Denver winning the championship last year. So this will be the 6th straight year that there's been a new NBA champion, which I believe has not happened since the 70s. Now, I don't mean that they're back to back. It just means that it's a new champion every year. If you can't figure that out, I'm not going to go into great depth about it. But I believe that hasn't happened since the 70s. You know what else hasn't happened since the 1970s? Before I get to the Cavaliers coaching search, which has just been duller than dull, in my opinion. Anyway, what else hasn't happened since the 70s? The Washington Wizards have not won 50 games in a season since 1979. I know that because I wrote a story on the Wizards today. I was a little surprised they didn't even interview or look at JB Bickerstaff, to be frank with you, because JB Bickerstaff showed with the Cavs he can take these teams that are kind of a mess and get them places. He may not be the coach to put them over the top, but he's the coach that could get them places. And as far as I know, I had heard that JB's name was linked to Washington, but he never got an interview as far as I know, and they never contacted him. Instead, they went with their interim coach who finished 8-31. Seems like a good guy, but, whatever. Brian Keefe is his name. But the Wizards, they were known as the Bullets, and I think we've talked about the nickname change before, but 1979 have not won 50 games. And as far as anybody can tell, they're still going to bat with Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole. So good luck with all that. Okay, on to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Talking about teams that could use a little good fortune. Cavs could use a little good fortune. Coaching search. We'll start there because this is what we talked about last week. And I'm here to tell you, I'm not the least bit excited about this search. I don't know why. I mean, the names we're hearing: Kenny Atkinson, James Borrego, Chris Quinn, the Hawks, the Heat assistant coach, been a long time there under Eric Spoelstra, actually played backup point guard for the Cavs, I believe in 2013, his final NBA season. Chris Quinn was a star at Notre Dame. Johnny Bryant. We've heard all these names. These guys are all set to interview with the Cavs, okay? The 4 names I just mentioned: Kenny Atkinson, Warriors assistant. I didn't mention 4. I mentioned 3. Here I'll mention 4 now. James Borrego, the Pelicans assistant, former Hornets coach. Johnny Bryant, former Jazz assistant. Apparently Donovan Mitchell really likes Johnny Bryant. Doesn't mean he wants him hired as coach, just knows him and likes him. And he's a Knicks assistant. And then Chris Quinn, the Heat assistant. Now we're hearing names like Micah Nori, who actually, Micah Nori is a Timberwolves assistant who filled in for their head coach, Chris Finch, when Chris Finch went down with a torn patellar ligament in his knee when one of his players, Mike Conley Jr. from Ohio State, ran into him by accident while Chris Finch was on the sidelines. He tore up his knee, had to have surgery. So Micah Nori, who was his lead assistant, filled in for Chris Quinn with the Timberwolves. And Micah Nori, by the way, is an Ohio native. He has interviewed with the Cavs. He's from the same town, Middleton, Ohio, that Jerry Lucas, NBA legend Jerry Lucas, who I'm sure 95% of you don't know, which just goes to show you how fleeting fame is. Because at one point, Jerry Lucas was a huge deal. Played at Ohio State, played for the Cincinnati Royals with Oscar Robertson, I believe. It was, he's an NBA legend. He's should be one of the top 75 players. I don't remember if he was on the list or not, but he should be. And Micah Nori is from his hometown. So perhaps the Cavs think maybe Micah Nori could bring some of that Middletown, Ohio magic of Jerry Lucas with him. And obviously another name we're hearing is Alex Jensen, who's a Mavericks assistant, who I believe the Cavs would love to interview. Obviously, Alex Jensen is in the NBA Finals with the Mavericks as Jason Kidd's assistant. But I will say this, if whatever the finals is over, if the Cavs haven't hired a coach, which I don't know that they will, depending, they probably will interview Alex Jensen, which is interesting because the last possible day of the NBA Finals is June 23rd, and the NBA draft is June 26th. And I have heard that the Cavs want to hire a coach before the draft. So if they were to interview Alex Jensen, June 23rd would be game 7. So if it should go that far and they want to interview Alex Jensen, they may have to go to him. I don't know. I don't know how that works. Or they just stick him on a plane after game 7 and have him fly to Cleveland for an interview. So the other option is to not hire a coach before the draft. So I'm assuming that those are the guys they're going to look at. We've heard they're not going to interview Frank Vogel, who was the Suns coach who just got fired. Who cares? Don't interview Frank Vogel. I mean, would anybody be excited about Frank Vogel? And he seems like a decent enough coach, but that's my whole point. It's my whole point about this list. Now, listen, you don't need to make a splash, right? And there really isn't a lot of great earth-shattering candidates out there that we know. Terry Stotts, we've heard that name. Not going to excite anybody. Terry Stotts did a wonderful job in Portland, I thought, and got a raw deal. Got fired after leading them to the playoffs 9 straight years. How many teams can say that they've been to the playoffs 9 straight years? Not very many, and he did that in Portland with obviously CJ McCollum and of course Damian Lillard, but they were always there. They never made it to the finals, but they always got to the playoffs and always gave, I think one or two times, one time got to the Western Conference Finals where they lost to that Warriors team with Durant, I believe. But anyway, so Terry Stotts is not considered a real strong candidate, but his name is there. But again, is Terry Stotts going to excite anybody? No, probably not. Probably not. You know what? We're in June, and I'm talking about the Cavs coaching search, and I'm writing about it, and I almost feel like I'm going through the motions because there's just not any buzz around this search. And again, the Cavs have won the press conference a lot, and it didn't work out for them, so it's okay if there's no buzz. I just know fans just don't care for the retreads. And that's what Kenny Atkinson is. It's what James Borrego is. And I think those guys are really good coaches and probably deserve another chance. And if you're the Cavs and you do, Donovan Mitchell signs that extension, you want to have a veteran coach in there probably. Who knows? Who knows? Steve Kerr didn't have any head coaching experience when he took over the Warriors. He did a great job. Ty Lue didn't have any head coaching experience when he took over the Cavs. Did a fine job. Let him do, coach them to a championship, something that it sure helped having a healthy LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Love. But, you had to make that work on the court. Ty Lue deserves credit for that. So, there's no buzz about this Cavs coaching search. I'm bored with it, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means Sam Amico and probably some fans, we like splashes, man. We like to hear those names, right? The big name. Give us, I don't know, who's a big name in college? And you would say, people would be like, oh, remember when the Cavs went after Tom Izzo and offered him a big contract, and that was really a Dan Gilbert move, or when they hired John Beilein, which was a big splash, and how did that go? So, I think that it's okay that they're not really trying to make a big splash here. They're just trying to find a fit. And, somebody asked me earlier today, do you think that the Cavs are really determined to hire somebody that Donovan Mitchell likes because of his contract extension that he can sign this summer? They want to make sure that it's someone Donovan Mitchell likes. And I'll give you the answer that I gave them. And I said, no, they just don't. I'll tell you what they aren't going to do. They aren't going to hire somebody he doesn't like. That's what I can tell you, the Cavs. They will know who Donovan Mitchell doesn't care for. That will be made clear to them, maybe not by Donovan Mitchell directly, but through just their own research, maybe, reps for Donovan Mitchell. They're not going to hire somebody he doesn't like. And I just use a double negative, and I'm sure I'll hear about it from probably my mother later. But anyway, that's where the Cavs stand on their coaching hire. And they do hope to have a coach in place before they make their offer of a maximum contract extension, which I believe will be the end of June. So, and Mitchell can agree to that as soon as the first week of July. So I do believe that the Cavs will have a coach in place, if not for the draft on June 26th, then shortly thereafter, probably a few days after. I do know they'd like to have a coach in before the draft because that helps. That helps with, not only your pick, but and the coach doesn't have a ton of say in the picks, believe it or not, but they will have a little bit of, they'll give some feedback, but that's usually a front office scouting thing. Coach will sit in on it. You like to have the coach there just so he knows who you're going to, who he knows who you're thinking about picking. So that's the Cavs coaching search. We've talked about Kenny Atkinson and James Borrego being the front runners. I think we mentioned that last week. Hasn't changed. So maybe it has changed. But let me just say this. We really don't have any idea who the front runners are. We know that the Cavs have interviewed Atkinson, Borrego, and they've interviewed Chris Quinn, Johnny Bryant, Micah Nori, and David Adelman, who is the Denver Nuggets assistant, son of former NBA coach, Portland Trailblazers coach Rick Adelman, who took the Blazers to the finals twice in those Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter era. By the way, every time I say Porter, the last name Porter, I want to say Junior after, because there's Kevin Porter Jr., who, we won't go any further with him. Craig Porter Jr., who we Cavaliers fans all enjoy. And there's another Porter Jr. out there, Otto Porter Jr. Yeah. So there's a lot of Porter. If your last name's Porter, you're having a kid and you're going to name him after yourself so he can be a junior, right? And that's the type of clear facts that you can only get here on 330 to go with Sam Amico. So anyway, speaking of splashes in the coaching search, I got it right here on the envelope, so it's official. What's with the Lakers going after Dan Hurley at Connecticut? Okay, first of all, for those of you who aren't huge basketball fans, let me explain. Dan Hurley is the coach at the University of Connecticut. They won the last 2 national championships. Okay, he's a New Jersey guy. He's super fiery, and I mean, I just don't know how that's going to, how that would translate to the NBA, because I mean, you're talking, he's not like Bobby Knight fiery in a bad sense, but he is over the top. And I've met Dan Hurley. He's a wonderful guy, but just said hello and all that. But he's if you've seen him coach games, you're just waiting for him to take a chair like Bobby Knight and throw it out on the floor. He's just got that much emotion. He's an East Coast, New Jersey intense guy. Many of you may remember his brother, who was the coach at Arizona State, Bobby Hurley, who was the point guard at Duke when Duke was, with Christian Laettner and all those Duke teams. I guess it was probably 30 years ago now, when they lost to UNLV and the Final Four the championship game got blasted by him by like 30 points. The next year, Bobby Hurley and Christian Laettner beat UNLV in the Final Four, got revenge, won the national championship. And Bobby Hurley, if you remember, was a very fiery player, went on to the NBA before getting injured. He was in a car accident that kind of derailed his, kind of serious, but nothing terrible, but it did derail his career, went to the Sacramento Kings. So, yeah, Dan Hurley is his brother, played at Seton Hall, did not play in the NBA, has been coaching for years, and he's led, UConn, when Dan Hurley first got there, was bad. They had a really terrible season. And after the season, Dan Hurley said, everybody better get their licks in now because we're coming. That's the kind of guy he is. He went to the media and said, yeah, get your licks in now because we're coming. And, we're going to be the team to beat. And at the time, everybody was like, okay, sure, buddy. Well, guess what? He's just won 2 national championships in a row, and it's been pretty easy. They haven't really been challenged too much, UConn. So now we're hearing reports. Adrian Wojnarowski from ESPN was the first to report it, that the Lakers are targeting Dan Hurley at UConn to be their next coach. This came out of nowhere, right? Because we've been hearing J.J. Redick or James Borrego are their 2 candidates. J.J. Redick and James Borrego were the 2 guys that they interviewed. We've heard J.J. Redick if he got the Lakers job, would want James Borrego, or the Lakers would, as his assistant, which I don't know that James Borrego would want to make that lateral move from assistant in New Orleans to assistant with the Lakers. Maybe he would, I don't know. But that's all beside the point. The point is, this Dan Hurley news came out of nowhere. And let me tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like that with the Cavs. In this coaching search, I would not be surprised if we see a name come out of nowhere. I don't know that it's going to be a huge splashy name, but just a name that's not been mentioned. And it could be a splashier name because that's the way Dan Gilbert operates. This coaching search has been way too low key, in my opinion, for somebody whose team is owned by Dan Gilbert. So I wouldn't, as far as the Cavs go, I would not be surprised if we see Dan Gilbert or some kind of splashy news like this Dan Hurley news with the Lakers that absolutely came out of nowhere. And apparently, Jeanie Buss, who owns the Lakers and is married to comedian Jay Mohr, they just recently got married, which it's an interesting, this is Jeannie's first marriage. And she actually followed me on Twitter and liked one of my tweets. That all happened in the last year. And I thought, maybe she were in love with me, but don't repeat that, by the way. That we'll keep that our little secret. But anyway, she and Rob Palinka, the GM, who looks very much like Rob Lowe, and I think that's by design. He's an LA guy. I think he kind of tries that. But either way, those things aside, Rob Palinka and Jeanie Buss are going to supposedly meet with Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley supposedly met with his team at UConn and said, look, the Lakers are coming after me. They're going to offer me way too much money to go try to fix their train wreck of a roster. And he may have left that part out. But they're going to offer him a lot of money, a lengthy contract to get him to do this. And guess what? This is not uncommon for the Lakers, who are kind of the Yankees of the NBA, right? 20 years ago, the Lakers did the same thing. It's been 20 years ago to this summer that the Los Angeles Lakers offered Mike Krzyzewski the same type of deal from Duke University. Come coach our team. Here's way too much money and way too many years on the contract. And they offered that to Mike Krzyzewski at Duke. And guess what? Mike Krzyzewski went through it all, listened to their pitch, was very nice. And of course you're going to do that. You're going to do that as a coach because you're going to listen and say, if I ever need the Lakers, then I need to be nice about this and act like I could potentially go there. Dan Hurley, I would be stunned if he takes that job. I would be stunned. You want to go coach, no disrespect, aging LeBron James. I mean, LeBron isn't going to get better, okay? He's going to be 40. He's not getting better. He'll get worse. And LeBron's good. So him getting worse is not a big deal. He's not what he used to be. And he's never going back to what he used to be. Again, that's not criticism. I say the same thing about myself, and I just say it day by day. I get out of bed and my hip hurts, and I'm like, well, I guess that hurts for forever. I'm not going back to 2 days ago when it didn't hurt ever. So, that's just, how things go with age. So you've got LeBron James, going to be 40, showing for sure signs of slowing down, especially defensively. Anthony Davis, who I think is 30-ish, but, he's so injury prone, it's like he's 40. And he's a brilliant player. There's nothing wrong, but it's Anthony Davis always about, is he going to be able to stay on the court? And then beyond those two, what do you have that excites a coach who's coaching kids in college who are going to hang on his every word, and he's winning championships there. He's making really good money as is. He's an East Coast guy. He's on the East Coast. He's very blue collar. I just don't see the match. If you're the Lakers, this to me reeks of, hey, we're a dumpster fire. Could you come try to save us? Because we don't really have any other answers. And if you really were courting JJ Redick, what does this say? This says to me that maybe somebody from some big camp, whether it was Jeanie Buss saying, I don't want JJ Redick, whether it was LeBron James saying, hey, let's go see, or Rich Paul, let's go see what this Dan Hurley says. Pay him, whatever he wants. Give him the team. Dan Hurley, you're the coach and you own the Lakers. There. Now you can come coach us. But I just think, to me, it reeks of desperation. And I will say this. I don't think it'll work. I think if Dan Hurley went to the Lakers, it'd be one of the biggest disasters in a team that's already kind of a disaster. I almost said in a town that's almost a disaster. I don't think town is. But the Lakers themselves, they have a lot of ways of trying to cover up the fact that they're on the way down. And this is one way. This is one way of saying, look what we're doing. We're courting the coach at the University of Connecticut. And he's even telling his players we're courting him. Somebody report that. Who cares? Who cares? This is all set up because they're the Lakers. So anything they do is going to blow up. If they hired James Borrego, even though he's probably a better NBA coach than Dan Hurley, the fans might revolt. They don't do things there that make sense. They make splashes. And you know what? They won the bubble championship. I'll give them that. They won the title in the Walt Disney Auxiliary Gym. But that's when LeBron James was something closer to LeBron James as opposed to, a 40-year-old LeBron James, which is still good. You're not going to carry you to a title anymore. He knows that. The Lakers know that. Anthony Davis knows it. Anthony Davis isn't going to carry you to a title either. You know what the Lakers look like when LeBron's hurt and it's Anthony Davis out there? They look like Anthony Davis Pelicans team that might maybe make the playoffs. Well, they barely make it with LeBron. I'm not mad. I'm just excited. NBA Finals. We're moving down on the envelope. What do you guys, by the way, let me know what you think about the Lakers. I think by the time this show airs, Dan Hurley will have said, yeah, I don't want that job. Well, it's airing right now. But I mean, by the time it's on YouTube, which will be later. Anyway, I would say that, yeah, Dan Hurley's going to say he does not want that job at some point, and probably soon. Look, it's very flattering if you're Dan Hurley, I'm sure. And the money, who knows? Are they going to double what he makes at UConn? That's not going to, to me, I don't know that would be a big deal. Come coach our fledgling team with the aging superstar and the other injury-prone star. By the way, we're going to draft Bronny James, who's not ready for the NBA. So we're really not going to be doing a whole lot to help you out in the off season. But we'll pay you a lot of money and by the way, you're not going to win. And because we're the most watched franchise, you're going to be buried by the fans and the media. But we're going to pay you a lot to do all that. That should be their pitch. The pitch should be honesty. And it should be, we're not good. We're not going to be any good. We're only getting worse because we don't have any draft picks. And the one draft pick we do have, we're going to draft it on a guy who's, look, I love Bronny James. We've been over that. There's nothing wrong with Bronny James. He's not going to help the Los Angeles Lakers win games. He might help their G League team. But he's not going to help the Lakers, not next year. So what's your pitch to Dan Hurley? Did I say we were moving down the list and that I wasn't angry? I guess I must have lied because I just refuted both of those things by my actions. Okay, moving down the list. We've got the NBA Finals. I'm not going to get too much into that because obviously by the time, game one this is live. So game one is tonight and you may be watching this Saturday as I sometimes do. I'll watch it a couple days later because I certainly don't want to watch it right after because again, I'm starving. I need to go eat. But anyway, NBA Finals. I think it's too long between the end of the conference finals and the start of the NBA Finals. We've had like 8 days. Out of sight, out of mind. Right? That's how I was with Jeanie Buss. That's why she married Jay Mohr. I didn't talk to her for a week. No. But I mean, honestly, I just think, look, diehard fans like us, well, the week's fine. We're kind of longing for some basketball. I wasn't because I've really enjoyed watching the Guardians, except for today. But other than that, I watched the whole thing the other day, 5-0, when they went down 5-0 to the Royals. And the Royals, who are the biggest challengers against the number one pitcher in the whole league, Kansas City's pitcher, I can't remember his name. Sorry, I'm not I cover the NBA for a living, so I forget. I will tell you this: that pitcher is pretty much like older than my grandpa, and he's never been any good. He was a reliever for a long time, and now he's suddenly the best pitcher in baseball. And he went up on the Indians 5-0 the other day. Sorry, the Guardians. I have no problem with the nickname. I just forget it. I don't like the logo. I think they got to come up with a better logo. Anyway, so 5-0. The Guardians went down to the Royals, who act like they're going to take the division from us. And guess what? Little by little, the Guardians came back and ended up winning 8-5. When they went down 4-0, I had it on the radio. I was outside doing stuff. And Tom Hamilton, bless his soul, said, well, I don't think on the radio, Tom Hamilton, the Guardians broadcaster, and I believed him. He said, I don't think the Guardians are going to be able to come back off this guy. This guy's just got great stuff this year. Not going to be able to come back. And they proved Tom Hamilton wrong, and he couldn't have been happier for it. So, and I didn't think they'd come back either. I was ready to turn the game off. Where was I? Oh, yeah. The NBA Finals. See, this is why you can't wait until, 8 days between the end of the conference finals and the start of the NBA Finals. Because we ADHD people get distracted. By the way, one last thought on the Kansas City Royals. Probably one of the best stories in baseball, by the way, is their pitcher, Sam Logan. Have you heard this story? He pitched against the Guardians the other night, and I think was kind of a reason the Guardians were able to come back. He's a relief pitcher. Sam Logan went to Sacramento State, which, is not exactly a baseball factory, but he got drafted as a pitcher by, I think, the Tampa Bay Rays. And then it was either Tampa Bay. Let's just go with Tampa Bay. Whoever it was, he didn't stick around very long. He got cut. And guess what? He thought, that's it. I'm done with baseball. I went to Sacramento State. Not many people are going to give me a shot. I had my shot with the Rays. He quit and went to EMT school and finished EMT school. It took him a year to become a paramedic. And that's what he thought he was going to do the rest of his life. So he decided, after a year, I'm going to give baseball one more shot before I go full-fledged into becoming a paramedic. And he gave it another shot and somehow got signed. I think he went to the Giants. He went to somebody else. And now he's a part of the Royals. And I believe, obviously the Royals' starting pitching staff has been fantastic. The relievers have not been that great, I guess, according to Tom Hamilton the other night. So great story, though. Great story. I mean, the guy could be, he's a paramedic. He's a licensed paramedic, but now he's pitching pro baseball after he had quit. Just goes to show you, guys named Sam, man, we just do not give up. I don't know what it is. I should probably be selling insurance right now. But I just refuse to stop after layoff after layoff after layoff. Now I'm my own boss, so odds are I won't get laid off. Okay, NBA Finals. Who do I like? I like the Celtics to win it. Then they're going to have their 18th championship. We'll put them above the Lakers because they both have 17 in their franchise. I'm rooting wholeheartedly for the Mavericks. I would like to see, Kyrie Irving has really, he was always great with me. I don't know. I told this story on the Mark Price podcast a couple weeks ago. I don't know if I've told it here, but I'm going to tell it again anyway. Kyrie was always very nice to me. And there were, and I think I was like the first person to interview Kyrie one-on-one in Cleveland because I was working at Fox Sports Ohio and we got exclusive interviews with the players and coaches for television. So they had me do the Kyrie one for TV. So Kyrie was the first. He had been in Cleveland one day, and then he addressed the entire media, and then they pulled him over and said, hey, you're going to talk to Sam. And we had a great old time because I made jokes. I showed him my ADHD-ness. He thought it was great. I made fun of Andy Varejao. He had a great time with that. So, but Kyrie could always be kind of a jerk to the media. Like, in the future, as he became a bigger star, the media did not like to deal with him for a long time, but he was still always nice to me, which of course, boyish charm, striking good looks, whatever. So he was always polite to me. In fact, one time, one reporter, and I can't remember who it was, so I'm not going to name names, but asked him after a game, Kyrie, what did you think about the third quarter? What happened in the third quarter? You guys, it kind of got away from you there. What happened? And Kyrie said, well, you were at the game. You saw what happened. So, the other writers were like, why is Kyrie such a jerk? Why is he always so nice to you, Amico? And I said, I don't know. But, I mean, who wouldn't be nice to me? So I said, just to show you that he'll be mean to me, I will ask that same question next game. I will say, Kyrie, what happened in the third quarter? So that he will yell at me and everybody else could see that he's not playing favorites. But I went and asked Kyrie after the next game. I said, Kyrie, what happened in that third quarter? Things got away from you guys a little bit. And he couldn't have been nicer. He was, great question, blah, 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 blah. And it was just like, I tried, guys. I tried. And they were, calling me names and rolling their eyes and all that stuff. The other reporters, I mean. So, yeah, he always had a good relationship with Kyrie. Yeah, he's been, he's done that. The whole flat earth thing and all that, which I think he's walked those back. Either way, I can see a change in Kyrie Irving, whether that's, frankly, I can see one off the court. He's just 31 years old now, has matured. I think he's found a good place for himself. And I think that Dallas fits him well. Doncic is the type of star who is he's just very unassuming, Luka Doncic, for a star. Yes, he screams at the refs all the time. He yells at the fans. He gets really into it. But as far as a teammate, he's just, hey, you're your own person. I think you're great, whoever you are. Let's go win some games. And Kyrie's totally on board with that. And you know what? Now Kyrie's the older guy, like he was when he was in Cleveland. He was the younger guy next to LeBron. Now Kyrie's the older guy. And he's the one who's kind of building up Luka. And they just have a good relationship. And so for that reason, I would be thrilled for Kyrie Irving if he wins another championship. I'd like to see Luka Doncic win a championship. And guess what? I don't have anything against Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I like them just fine. Boring superstars. Sorry. Boring to me. I don't know. Kristaps Porzingis. Ugh. He looks like the world's tallest lamppost. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just I don't know. They're fine players. They just do nothing for me. And they're probably going to win the championship. I like Drew Holiday. I like all those guys. But, Drew Holiday, who won a championship a few years ago with the Milwaukee Bucks, consummate pro, great defender, great teammate. Always liked those guys. Derek White, nice player. We saw all those guys against the Cavs. Yeah. Do nothing for me. And then if Boston wins, we got to listen to the Boston fans. I don't know who I like less, the Celtics or the Lakers. Probably the Celtics. At least the Lakers have an Akron guy on the team that you like and all that. I think most of us still like LeBron. I do. And I don't dislike the Lakers team. The fans and the media hype around them annoy me. The fact that they're probably the most read team on our website based in Akron, Ohio, annoys me. And that might be because of LeBron, but even when it was like when I had the website and it was LeBron and Kobe, LeBron was in Cleveland and Kobe was with the Lakers were still probably more red than the Cavs. That annoys me. So it's not like the team annoys me. I obviously like Jeanie Buss, and Rob Palinka seems kind of cool. He seems like an LA guy. I'd be his friend if he asked. So it's not those guys I don't like. It's kind of the narrative. The narrative really gets under my skin that everything the Lakers do is so much more important than everybody else. Not to me. Not to me, by the way. I'd rather hear about the Washington Wizards coaching search. I enjoy, when I'm writing on my website, the Washington Wizards coaching search, knowing that 7 people are going to read that. And if I write about the Lakers, 7,000. Or the Cavs. Cavs do well. Cavs are about in the middle of that. So, yeah. The Cavs problem is the coaching search is so boring, nobody wants to read about it. And I don't want to write about it. Go ask somebody. Becky Hammond, do something. Somebody exciting. Go talk to the Iowa women's coach. There you go. And then you get endorsements from Caitlin Clark, who's the biggest name in basketball, blah, blah, blah. And I know Mike has talked a lot about on 330 to go, Caitlin Clark. Am I just rambling here? I am a little bit, but that's kind of the show, right? And by the way, are you enjoying the Longhorn behind me there again today. Cavs pillow. Want to make sure that we gave the Longhorn a shout out. I actually kind of looked at a new background today. I'm glad I didn't do it because I need those horns over my head. The other item of business. So let me finish on the NBA Finals first. Too long between games. Make it. You know what? I know. You know the NBA has it set. First day of the NBA Finals, last day of the NBA Finals. So I get it. The NBA doesn't want to. You know, they don't want to start the NBA Finals. They have a set date and they have to leave room in case there were a Game 7. Well, there was no Game 7 because there was a sweep. The Celtics swept the Pacers and the Mavericks beat the Timberwolves in 5. So, you know, had those series gone 7 games, we wouldn't have 8 days. We'd only have like 3 or something. But, you know, between the end of the conference finals and the start of the finals. But whatever. I just think you don't have to have a set start date. Whatever. The NBA is not going to listen to me. I've been fighting them since 1963. It's actually not. I'm not quite that old. Okay, so last order of business. Kind of going to give somebody a free ad here. But I think it's well worth it because I know Cavs fans and Guardians fans have struggled to find games locally, regionally on Bally Sports, right? Now, I don't want you to make the change because we don't know what's going to happen with Bally Sports, but I can tell you I made the change to Fubo TV, which has Bally Sports. I learned this from another writer. It's the same. I believe the cost is the same as YouTube TV. So I made the switch. The only bad news about Fubo TV, for those of you who are huge NBA fans and like Inside the NBA with Charles Barkley and Ernie Johnson and all those guys and Shaquille O'Neal, they don't have TNT. Fubo TV does not have TNT. Now, that's probably not such a huge deal if you just watch the Cavs because they're never on TNT, so it's not a big deal. And last year is supposed to be the next. We keep hearing these reports. I've been running them on the website. TNT is not going to carry the NBA anymore, it sounds like, which means the end of Inside the NBA, which I know Mike has talked about. But, yeah. So I just dropped my list. I meant to do one of those. There we go. Yeah, so imagine that. No more Inside the NBA. That's the bad news. The good news would be that NBC is going to pick up the NBA again. They're kind of stealing it from TNT. If all this goes through, and it sounds like it's going to be finalized right after the finals, that NBC, ESPN will remain one of the primary broadcasters of the NBA. NBC will be replacing TNT. This are all according to reports. This is supposed to go through. And if that happens, they will bring back that song, Round Ball Rock, written by John Tesh. I believe NBC had the NBA from 1990 to 2002. And that's when that song became popular. Everybody loved it. Who remembers it? You can look it up on YouTube. Round Ball Rock, composed by John Tesh. It does have a great sound to it. I personally like the CBS song, which was, I believe, maybe before that. So I thought that was cool. But Round Ball Rock, you got to like too. So the NBC would also stream games on their Peacock network. They have a pretty cool setup going from everything I've heard. I know NBC would do some kind of game of the week, like on Saturday afternoon or something. I don't know, after football season. I read what NBC was going to do and Peacock was going to do. Believe it or not, I didn't memorize it, which I'm usually able to do with basketball stuff. But I just thought it was really cool, the way they had it set up and when they were going to air games. And then Amazon Prime, now carrying the NFL, would have rights to NBA games as well. And they had something cool. Amazon Prime would be your home for the in-season tournament, regardless of what your feelings are about that. They would be carrying that. And I think that they would be, Amazon Prime would really build it up. I wouldn't be surprised to see Amazon Prime do something with Charles Barkley and hire Charles Barkley. Here's the thing. Ernie Johnson has said, I mean, he's a lifelong Turner sports guy. He worked at TBS, his dad used to call Braves games. He lives in Atlanta. He said the NBA loses or TNT loses the NBA. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying at TNT. So, yeah, I mean, everything good comes to an end. Unfortunately for you, that's not quite yet the case with this show, but we will be ending here shortly. But I think that making the switch to Fubo TV. Did I just see a little comment there, Steve? If so, oh, same Sam. Okay. Hi, Lawrence. How you doing? I do think that if you go over to Fubo TV, you can get Cavs games, you can get Guardians games, and I think it's the same as YouTube TV. At least it cost me the same as YouTube TV. So you want to make that move and watch the Guardians? There you go, because they do have Bally Sports. And one last thing on my list here that I threw that I almost forgot was no, that was it. But no TNT. No TNT on Fubo TV. So listen, the Cavs coaching search just not doing a whole lot for us, right? Well, maybe it is for you. I will say this. Kenny Atkinson was a pretty good coach with the Nets. He didn't have much to work with there. Kevin Durant was hurt. And, Jared Allen, Karis LeVert were there. They really liked him, but they were obviously a lot younger. And the one thing I would say about Kenny Atkinson is, to me, the best example is Mike Brown of what Kenny Atkinson could become. Because Mike Brown, of course, used to say all the time when he was the coach of the Cavs, I love ugly basketball. The uglier the games, the better for me. So their offense was when Mike Brown was the coach of the Cavs, very kind of clunky, kind of a slower down game. Just, it was grit and grind and all that stuff. Well, then Mike Brown went and became the coach or assistant coach with Steve Kerr with the Warriors and kind of took Steve Kerr's strategy with him. Mike Brown still has principles from his own time as a head coach, but he's integrated a lot of stuff that, he learned and liked really with Steve Kerr's Warriors. And now Mike Brown's a coach of the Sacramento Kings, and they're far from clunky offensively. They're a great offensive team. They're one of the best offensive teams in the league. So I think if you're a Cavs fan, you hear the name Kenny Atkinson, you're like, whatever. Well, I think it helps being on the staff of the Warriors. I think that Brown and Kerr and Atkinson, those guys all put their heads together and really came up with something. So Kenny Atkinson would, you could do worse. You could do worse than James Borrego, who won 10 more games in each of his final 3 seasons. It's just not very exciting. I don't know. Was it exciting when the Browns hired Kevin Stefanski, whose father, by the way, Ed Stefanski, longtime NBA general manager, right? All right, let's see what Scott says. Right, look at the Guardians manager. No one knew him. Voigt. Is he related to John Voigt? I don't know. I asked that, I think, when he was hired. Nobody laughed then either. I've got another one. Hoping for a good coach regardless. Brad, you're right. You're exactly right. Yeah. So it's true. You don't need to make a splash. And if you guys are done interrupting now, I'll go back to telling my story about Ed Stefanski. Was a longtime GM, I think, with the Nets. He was obviously with the Pistons. I think he's still a consultant with the Pistons. And I interviewed Ed about Kevin when Kevin took the Browns job. You know what Ed Stefanski told me? When Kevin was growing up, he wanted to be John Stockton. Not a football player. Wanted to be John Stockton. And Ed said, I knew pretty quickly that was not going to happen. So Kevin became a football player. I think he played both, but he played football in college. If I'm correct, didn't Kevin go to an Ivy League school? I don't know. I've covered it all today. I've covered the Guardians, the Cavs. I've touched on the Cavs, which is supposed to be the whole show. Talked a lot about the Browns. I've talked, about the Lakers. And I think that should probably just about do it for today. Be back next week. I don't think the Cavs are going to have a coach by then. I really don't. Maybe they'll surprise us. I can tell you this. I don't think Dan Hurley next week at this time when we come back will be the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. I've been wrong before. I will be again. But that's my prediction, that the Lakers aren't, that Dan Hurley's going to say, Sam Amico really woke, opened my eyes on 3-3-0 to go. And there's no way I'm taking this job because it would be a bad move for me. So with that, where else can you get better life advice than right here on the 3-3-0 to go Hoops Wire show? I appreciate everybody watching, whether it be live or on YouTube or Instagram or wherever. And I appreciate you guys not minding me, obviously Facebook, but I appreciate you guys not minding me endlessly and shamelessly promoting the show and mostly myself. So with that in mind, I'm going to finally go eat something because I've been sitting here starving since probably about 5:30. So we will talk to you next week. Thanks again, everybody, for joining. Talk to you then.